little yarnivores and spiderettes, Fiber Spider back again with another product review for you. And yes, this is Caron Cakes, the latte cakes. Not late. We are never late for a very important date. No, these are latte cakes. And it was suggested to me that I give these a try, and yep, couldn't resist. At the time that I got them, they were on sale at Michael's, which is where I found them. As always, no, I'm not sponsored. That's why I can give you a perfectly transparent review as to this yarn. Now, at first, I was very skeptical because it looks sort of like mohair or Angora on steroids, very, 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 very fuzzy. And I thought it might be difficult to work with. So, you know me, I love a good challenge, so I decided I would give it a whirl. Now, when I go big or I go home, and I went big. So, yes, I decided to throw caution to the wind, and I got a whole bunch of different colors. I have blackberry, which has some lovely purplish hues to it. And I also got some coconut cream, which does kind of remind me of the exterior shell of a coconut. And I also got this lovely autumn colored one, which is red macaron. I don't think it's macaroon. I think it's macaron. Absolutely lovely. And a bunch of other interesting colors as well. I want to show you, some of the other things I got too. This one is velvet teal. Just some really interesting colorways. And one more, and then I'll show you what I'm working on. This one here is blueberry, most certainly is. And also, last but not least, I started doing some swatch work with persimmon blue, yes. And so this one is persimmon blue, already balled up. I have my idiosyncrasy. I like to pre-ball my yarn, so you can see some interesting, lovely shades in there. And so I thought, all right, is this going to be a beastie to work with, or is it going to be easier? Now, initially, you see all of the fuzzies, as you can see, and you're like, oh God, is this going to be a nightmare? Well, yes and no. It has pros and cons. I will say that much. On the one hand, yes, it is extremely textured, extremely fuzzy. However, I will say this, it is a lot easier to work with than, say, a homespun, because you can actually see your stitches. And I will go into that more as well. And I decided to try working it with knitting as well as crocheting to see which is easier, because, I like to try to be comprehensive with you guys. And does it actually work? Because you know me, I like to be as thorough as I can and to show you my experience. That way, you'll know if this product would be right for you or not. So we'll get into it, and I'll show you the knitting first. Alrighty. Okay, so before we go any further, as far as knitting is concerned, it recommends a size 10.5 or 6.5 millimeter knitting needle, or a size K, 10.5, 6.5 millimeter hook. And it is construed as a bulky weight. Now, the weight of the yarn itself, I would say it's more of a worsted. However, all of the fuzz, you want to accommodate for that. And it's 50% acrylic and 42% nylon. All right. So instead of a size 10.5, I decided to use size 11 knitting needles. And these are my interchangeable circulars that I love so much, my Takumis. And so this is a little bit that I was knitting. And yes, it is super fuzzy. But the little fuzzies, they have not been shedding, which I'm very, very, very happy about thus far. And it is very soft and squishy, and it makes me think of, an Angora sweater, without the extreme cost, of course. And so, as you can see, you can actually see where your stitches are. Would I recommend using a very intricate stitch? No. I would suggest, simplicity would be the order of the day when using this yarn. So right now I'm doing a garter stitch piece with some increases and some decreases and so on and so forth, but nothing too intricate. Also, because of the fuzzy nature of this yarn, if you do something that's very, very intricate, it's going to get lost in the fuzz, and then you have all of that beautiful work that you do that is just going to get lost. Now, also, when you're using wooden or bamboo needles, typically it's better for the yarn not to slide quite so much as if you were using aluminum needles, or metal in general. This yarn slides. And now I think that's because of the nylon. This yarn, there's like no friction. It's like butter. So that being that being said, you want to be careful when you're stitching because you don't want to drop your stitches. And which I'm trying to do right now because it's very, very slick. I will say that, which on the one hand means that, your stitches aren't going to be stuck on your needles, which if you know what you're doing, which I like to think I do, the process will go that much faster. However, if you are paranoid of dropped stitches, which I usually am, that can be a little bit scary. So again, something to keep in mind as far as the pros and the cons go. And so, as you can see, it is very, very, very slick and easy to work with. Now, yes, you need to be aware of the fact that, you get your fuzzies here, which can be, let me just mark my place there. Because of the fuzzies, it can seem a little bit daunting, but it's really not that bad if you compare it to, say, a homespun or a boucle. You can actually see where the yarn is, okay? So as far as knitting goes, I like it. Now, I'm going to show you what the crocheting is like. Alrighty. Alright, now, so as far as the crocheting, yes, I am using a size K hook, which is what was recommended, and just some simple double crocheting. Now, and also this is the same colorway, by the way. Now, normally, if you were doing, say, a regular worsted weight yarn with this hook, it would seem extremely lacy, and it really doesn't seem quite as lacy because you have all of the fuzz, okay, which sort of compensates for the looseness of the drape. Also, I was very, very hesitant because I'm like, am I going to be able to see the stitches? Actually, you can, as you can see right there. As opposed to, like I said, a homespun or a boucle or something that is really fibrous and fuzzy, you can actually see beyond the fuzz that much easier with this yarn. So I say that is a big plus. Now, let's do a row together. So I'm doing my sort of non-chain up 3 method where it's a single crochet and then a chain 1 to start my row, and then just going into every stitch. And it's actually, I am surprised at how easy it is. Now, yes, it is, as you can see, extremely fibrous, but just as long as you are aware of what you're doing, it's really not that bad. Would I suggest doing something intricate, crochet-wise with this yarn? No, not really. Also, I think this yarn would be great for stitches where you're working into chain spaces as opposed to into stitches themselves, because right here is where I have to work into a stitch. And even that's not that bad, right here. Working into my chain stitch right there. It's really not that bad. So I'm pleasantly surprised because I was very, very, very apprehensive, you know, am I actually going to be able to work with this yarn? And I bought all of it, you know, without knowing what I know right now. And, you know, I decided I would take a chance and be able to review it for you guys, because I really do feel that if I have any knowledge that I can impart to you and help you with your decision making in any way, shape, or form, hey, great. You know, I'm all for it. I'm always about sharing whatever information I have with you guys. And because I'm not sponsored, I can give you a completely unbiased opinion. So there are pros and cons to this yarn, which I'm totally not afraid to say. So you can see it is extremely fuzzy wuzzy and very textured, and I rather like it, actually. Would I recommend it? Yes, definitely. But with the knowledge, you know, of knowing what you're getting yourself into when you're actually going to be working it, it is extremely luscious in its feel, although it can be perhaps a little bit daunting to work with. You do want to pay attention to what you're doing, by all means. Here's another thing. Can you rip out the stitches? That is a biggie, because with a lot of other fibrous yarns, you really can't. With the homespun or with Shawl in a Ball by Lion Brand, I believe, you really can't rip out the stitches without a lot of difficulty. Let's take a look. Rips right out. So if you make a mistake, you are not up the creek without a paddle. Works right out, because the fibers do not lock with each other. And I think it's because it's made out of nylon. I don't know. I am not a fiber expert, but I do know enough to know that if you're working on something and you make a mistake and you're not able to frog your stitches, there's nothing more frustrating. That actually is one of the drawbacks to Shawl in a Ball, and one of the reasons why I don't use it very often. I love the colorways. I love the texture. The gradient of color through those, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. But the fact that you can't frog it means a huge detriment to me. This, however, I'm not seeing any problems. So yes, overall, I would recommend it, whether you are crocheting or knitting. I think this would make a tremendous baby blanket yarn. Definitely. I really do. I know I keep saying because I'm trying to organize my thoughts as I'm speaking to you guys. But I would recommend it. I think it's really great. It's a little bit pricey. I think it was price-wise. Retail, hang on 1 second. I'll be right back. I know I should have been more prepared, but it happens. Okay, now I got my little receipt right here. Okay, so it was $9.99 per skein. Now, granted, you do get a decent amount of yardage. You get 530 yards, which really isn't bad. Now, if you compare that to the regular cakes, which I have a label around somewhere, I'm sure. I'm such a hot mess today. I really am. Here we go. Okay, so the regular Caron cakes, I do have a label here. The regular cakes, you get 383 yards. So actually, it is a good amount of yardage more. So considering you get more yardage and you get this fabulous fuzz to it, would I say it's worth it price-wise? Yeah, I would. Fortunately, they were on sale, where it was, I want to say $6.99, I think, at the time. So I got a pretty good deal. Now, of course, the sales change every week, granted. But that was my real inspiration for going the full mile and getting what I could to show you guys. So I do think that it's worth it. I love the texture. I love its simplicity. The fact that you can frog it, you can actually see your stitches, so you can crochet or knit, either or. Just be aware, by all means. I believe that, an informed consumer is a happy consumer. And I had no knowledge of this prior, but I just had to share with you guys. You guys are fabulous. And, it's my way of doing what I can for you, because I love you guys. So until next time, I want all of you to stay inspired, stay stitching, stay caffeinated, and all that good stuff. I love you guys, and I will see you in my next video. Bye for now.